Ladies and gentlemen, let's get into the video. Microsoft are working on another Xbox One revision and possibly an entire new Xbox. Now this information comes to us because of an FCC filing. We'll get more into that in just a moment. Now the folks over at NeoGAF actually discovered this, and several people have messaged me asking my opinion on it or for me to cover this piece of news, even though there's not exactly a lot of hard evidence, but I figure it's worth reporting anyway so you can cast your eagle vision on it. So as you can probably imagine, most of this is potentially going to be unveiled at E3. So first of all, let's just go into what the FCC is. So the FCC is an independent agency which operates, of course, on behalf of the United States government. Essentially, it's there to regulate communications, radio, television, that type of thing. It's basically to ensure that, first of all, that the equipment meets certain standards, and, for example, it's not going to blow up, and basically to make sure that, well, signals don't interfere with one another, you don't have fire hazards, all of the normal stuff that you'd expect from a regulatory body. But that also means that certain components must meet FCC approval. This is particularly true in the case of, for example, the Xbox One, because chips for that console are obviously wireless, or some chips, not all of them. For example, the processor isn't wireless, but certain components are actually, of course, needing to go through the FCC scrutiny, and therefore it must be filed. Now, during these documentations, if that made sense, the console itself is just referred to as host. It is not referred to as the Xbox, Xbox Next, Xbox Slim, or any other phrasing. But we'll go into more of why there is potentially a completely new unit and a revision. So the original Xbox One wireless chip was approved by the FCC under the model number of 1525. Now, in this case, the actual full number is FCC ID C3K1525. C3K is a unique identifier, and that's from Microsoft, whereas 1525 refers to the model number. Now, if you look at the patent, you can tell, or rather, if you look at the filing, you can tell that, yes, it's the Xbox One, and it does actually come with a user manual, which carries the wireless chip. Great. Now, in fact, if you look at the bottom of your Xbox One, you'll actually notice the same number. That's assuming, of course, you live within the appropriate region. But there have been two new recent filings with different model numbers. The first is 1682 and the second is 1683. Now, what's rather interesting is that 1683 includes a document, and this document has the user manual of 1525. Now, this basically would indicate that it's basically a new Xbox One with very similar safety information from the original Xbox One, if that made any sense. There's a lot of Xbox Ones going on in here. But the really weird thing is that there's the new Xbox revision. Now, model 1682, it does have the same wireless chip, which makes a lot of sense. Unless there's a major change to the, I guess you could say the requirements of the system, it wouldn't make sense for them to go with an entirely different wireless chip. But the NDA date is different. With the original revision, its NDA date is June 25th, whereas the second one is July 29th, which is, well, obviously a different date entirely. And it also has its own manual linked, but it's not the 1525 reference. So I know this sounds rather confusing, and it kind of is, but essentially the basic synopsis here is that there is the same wireless chip which is present in two different consoles which are being tested, right? Because obviously, once again, the FCC needs to file that the Wi-Fi chip works across both systems. But the weird thing is, one of them is referencing the manual of the current Xbox One, while the other one is not. But the big thing is that there is a different date for both attachments. Okay, so we've gone through what the news is essentially. What the hell could it be? Well, the obvious answer is it could be a new revision of the current Xbox. And by revision, we're referring to the main one, where obviously we know that the manual's the same. So it could be, for example, it's a slimline model. It could be a different hard drive size. It could be slightly smaller. It could be slightly different internals. For all we know, it could be the shift to bloody 14nm. We just do not know internally what Microsoft would have changed. It wouldn't surprise me though. I mean, another possibility is we could see another model of the Xbox One which doesn't have the disk drive. Or maybe Microsoft have done a cost reduction somehow, maybe put in a much smaller hard drive so you can plug in your own USB hard drive. Maybe they've managed to shrink down the case, maybe they've managed to do several things to basically make it slimline, really cost reduced, and Bob's your uncle, right? So it could be, I guess you could say, the entry level model, which would be kind of nice. It would be a good way for people to get into the Xbox at a much cheaper price than currently. But the weird one is, if this is another Xbox model entirely, and we're referring here, just to clarify, of model 1682, the really freaking bizarre thing is, like, what the hell is that model? Now, we've heard of the Xbox 1.5, we've heard of the Xbox Next, and immediately alarm bells across the internets, I tell you, are signalled, and they're saying, well, it could be the next generation Xbox, which, remember, Phil Spencer did say that they are not interested in incremental upgrade, and as far as he knew, this was not happening. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to see an entirely new Xbox or a major revision to the console. He said that he wasn't interested in, quote, small numbers, small upgrades. So if it's an Xbox Next, for all we know, it could be a processor that's twice as powerful, a graphics card 4 times powerful. We just don't know, and obviously I'm just purely speculating here, because at the end of the day, it could be a very benign thing indeed. It could be that we see a different model, and this new model, the one that is going to expire on July 29th, is going to be a slim model. It could be that there are just some internal changes that maybe would not even notice. Maybe Microsoft just had to file these. It's really difficult to say, but it's also rather tantalizing. The fact that it does have an entirely different manual is what's really interesting me. Kind of weird. I mean, I guess all we can do is wait, which sucks. But let's face it, E3 is going to be a racking exciting conference. I mean, this year, in terms of technology, and this is going slightly off the beaten path for a second, but seriously, this year in terms of technology and games, it's just really cool. I mean, yes, we've got the 4K, we've got the virtual reality, which everyone bangs on about, and we've also got HDR TVs and displays, which are becoming more the thing, but more than HDR and displays, we're also getting, of course, the next generation of graphics cards, processors. So that would mean Pascal, Polaris, Zen, Intel, of course, are going to be running on in with Kaby Lake, which is also a good thing. We've got next generation game engines, which are starting to support DirectX 12 and Vulkan, fully support them. And not to mention all of that, but the games, my god, the games. They're really awesome looking. I mean, seriously, the games are just incredible. I mean, I saw the Gears of War trailer, Gears of War 4, and I'm not even the biggest Gears fan, but shit! I mean, shit, seriously, I got chills. And I spent like a good half an hour just messaging my friend backwards and forwards, talking about the memories we had about the original, Gears of War when we first put it into the Xbox 360, and the memories we had of playing co-op together, just chainsawing the shit out of things and getting ourselves killed, because chainsawing's not the best thing to always do, but it was so bloody fun. I want to chainsaw things. Anyway, I digress. My point being with these rumours, don't get super duper excited. Don't think that you're going to have like, an Xbox One which is going to have a holographic display and suddenly it's going to be able to make your coffee in the morning and it's going to run at like 15,000 K or something along those lines. But what I am saying is it's really interesting Microsoft are doing this. And I'm actually good. I'm good no matter what Microsoft decides. I'm good whether it's just a cost-reduced model. I'm good whether it's a slimline model. I'm good if it's an entire new Xbox. And I'm good if Microsoft just decides, hey, you know what? We just decide to make a few internal tweaks. Maybe make the system quieter, or maybe make the system a little more reliable, although to be fair, the Xbox One is pretty darn reliable. I've not heard of a high failure rate, maybe it's just me, but I've not really heard of a high failure rate on either the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One, to both system creators' credit. Another possibility does actually include 4K content, but not necessarily for gaming. Remember, both Sony and other companies such as Netflix have hinted that Sony are actually working on a 4K capable PlayStation 4 for streaming. In fact, that's one of the reasons that Sony supposedly are touting the PS4K as 4K capable. In other words, it's so that companies such as Netflix can offer their 4K services through the system. And remember that the Xbox One is really being pushed as a multimedia hub as much as it is an entertainment console, particularly by Microsoft in the early days. Therefore, it would make a lot of sense for Microsoft to really want to push that for the Xbox One in a future revision. Now, it wouldn't really require that much jiggery pokery in terms of the components inside the Xbox One, most likely for Microsoft to allow this. One of the things that's holding it back, for example, is the lack of HDMI 2.0 and a few other little bits and bobs which Microsoft could certainly patch in, for lack of a better term. And I don't mean to make that sound like it's as easy as just simply replacing a RAM stick inside your PC. I'm just saying that they do definitely have the technology available right now, so if they are going to either, let's say, release a new SKU, for example a slimline model or what have you, it would make some measure of sense for them to also say, hey, you know what, let's also add this thing. I'd also like to give a quick shout out to Ryan over at Facebook for messaging us about this on the RGT wall. So let me know your thoughts on this one. Kind of weird, but as usual, thanks very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on this one, guys. Take care, bye for now.